Andrew Perkins, thank you so much for joining us at the AGM. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about how the CAPDT came together and what was the catalyst for forming it?
Thanks, Scarlett. It's a pleasure. As a matter of fact, it started as the CAPDT. Our name was, our initials at least, were the same in the beginning as they are now, and the second P was slipped in about a year and a half after we started. So we were originally the Canadian Association of Pet Dog Trainers, and slipped in the professional. And then, as you know, we more recently kept the professional and slipped out the pet to go back to the 1P. But how it started was Ian Dunbar was doing a kind of a lecture tour, visiting Australia, US, UK, and Canada. And in all of the lectures, these were for trainers, not for consumers. And in all of the lectures, he called upon trainers to form associations in their respective countries. At the time, what he said was he was worried about potential government regulation, that somebody would come in as a third party and start telling us what we can and can't do. And if we could band together before that and be able to demonstrate that we were self-directional. He didn't actually use a word like regulating, but self-directional, that perhaps we would stave that off and we wouldn't have to be governed by something outside of us. So that was the original impetus. And I think the Canadians were the first to declare. We were just a couple of months ahead of the US APDT in declaring our existence. And how it got started was at that first meeting, Ian passed around a pad of paper, said anybody who would want to be part of such an association, put out your name here. And we had, I thought I had it right in front of me here, we had 98 signatories. And I still have the document that all 98 names signed that they wanted to be part of it.
Wow.
So the reason I still have that is somewhere in the mid-90s, we had a lending library. Somebody donated a bunch of books to us. And I was assigned the job of librarian along with the newsletter editor. So I kind of had to keep all the important documents for a while.
Wow, that is quite a historical document for the CAPDT.
And I was browsing it today, and there are some names here that are still members today. I came across it besides my own name, of course, but Carolyn Clark, I believe, is still a member. And Monique Charbonnier, I think, is probably at the meeting that we're recording this for, was on this document. And such people as Alan Bauman and Jean Donaldson were at that meeting and signed this document. So it's funny, the first two names are Americans because it was passed around the room and they just happened to be the first two seats. The first Canadian name is number 3 is Judy Emmert, who was the owner of Dealing with Dogs, who was the co-host of the event, because we always, Dealing with Dogs, owned by Judy Emmert, was Ian's Canadian distributor of books.
Wow. Wow, those are so many great Easter eggs in there to find out how everything is all connected. Yeah. That's really awesome. Wow.
93, that was the spring of 1993. We had our first meeting in the fall of 1993, having called around all these names and tried to gather as many of them into one room as we could to get started. We appointed an interim board of directors. Donna Davidson was our first chairperson. Often goes unsung because she was only interim chair and stepped aside when it came time to actually have an election. She didn't want to continue. She was just helping us bridge the gap because she believed in the movement. By 94, with 58 members registered. We produced our first, see if I can get this, Constitution, Bylaws, and Code of Ethics. This is the original. By a year after that, we had doubled our membership to 140 something, 170 something.
Excellent. That is a huge amount of growth. Was that pre-internet?
Yes, all this was done by mail and phone.
That's pretty cool. What has been your proudest accomplishment?
Most of what I'm proud of is things we did as a group, not my accomplishments. But the creation of the first, the word has just left me, Code of Ethics, was we all the board sat together and decided what had to be in it and what we wanted to say, and then I wrote the code to publish in our first newsletter to have it approved by the membership by mail. And then, so I'm very proud of that Code of Ethics, and it stood until really with only a couple of tweak revisions. We didn't make any major changes to it until this most recent revision a year and a half ago. So it stood very well, although it had a couple of tweaks along the way because of the existence of the internet, and things had to be altered a little bit. And the newsletter itself, in those days, I had a desktop publishing software, but and a pretty rudimentary computer, but I had to produce hard copies that were printed on a dot matrix printer at first, the first issue, and then later on a laser printer that the association bought me, and take them to a printing house near my place and have 300, and actually I think we started with 500 because we were mailing to all trainers, not just members, to recruit. And then later we scaled it back to only members when we got over 300 members. At our maximum, we were at about 750 members. And I would get those printed and bring crates of these newsletters to my in-laws' house for Easter dinner, Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, and line up my in-laws in an assembly line to fold stuff and stamp and mail all these envelopes. And that went on for 11 years, 43 issues.
What a fun memory of getting everybody involved, and not only the evolution of the association, but also the evolution of the internet at the same time. So that's pretty awesome. That's cool.
And I still have the first newsletter too. You can see, I don't know if you can tell the resolution, maybe in the CAPDT part, but it's dot matrix. You can see all the little dots making up the letters.
That's wonderful. Oh, an original e-zine. Love it. or a regular zine, I guess, without the E. Yeah, just a zine. Awesome. Right. I love that you have the original. Oh, that's so great. What changes in the dog training industry have you seen in the last 30 years?
I might surprise you with this because it isn't the paradigm. The first puppy class I took in '91 with dealing with dogs was based on Volhard techniques, which you probably know is there's a lot of positivity and reinforcement, but there was a lot of modeling and guiding, where you would use the leash to push up the collar so the dog would look up rather than luring the dog to look up to get a sit, things like that. And the second class I took, my intermediate class, as a consumer before I was a trainer, dealing with dogs had already switched in the couple of weeks interval to Ian Dunbar's Lure Reward. And it caught on. He was just beginning to promote it in '91. It caught on so fast that I have not, as a trainer, actually seen much shift in the uptake of positive training and lure reward training and shaping and clickers and all of that, that all happened very suddenly just before I became a trainer. And really the uptake hasn't changed that dramatically because it caught on so fast. I mean, there's still a variety of methodologies out there, but I haven't seen a real shift in how many people are doing each. The real shift, I think, is in the polarization of those people. That in the 90s, when we had all these people who were learning different things and different methodologies and coming from different backgrounds, and younger trainers who'd only known Dunbar and other lure reward and beginning to be Karen Pryor as well, and older trainers who were either converting or not converting from what they knew before, we were all working together. We were all excited together about what we could share with one another and find the best things for dogs and for owners to rise to the top. And now increasingly there's a polarization there. And I see now, obviously some of that is that the internet encourages polarization and we see it in everything. But a big shift I've witnessed is that as two groups, there seems to be a lot of entrenchment and vilification of the other group. And on the more positive side, the shift I've seen is in the level of education of trainers. That through the 90s, there was a huge burst in availability of conferences and seminars and workshops. And people traveled across the country to go to them. And we, as an association, jumped into that and had from 96 onwards, we had a conference every year for 11 years before we started, maybe even 12 years before we started slowing down, getting the ability to find people to run them. And with that came a lot more trainers who were hearing a lot more, who were accessing a lot more information, a lot more education, a lot more experienced people to draw from, not just their own mentors, but mentors from everywhere. And of course, the internet just accelerated that because we were able to access people even when we couldn't travel to them. And then COVID added the phenomenon of the free seminar, workshop, and conference. And again, there's been so much more access again to be able to be mentored by anybody from anywhere in the world, even if you don't have the money to pay for it. And that's exciting. So there's a good shift and a bad shift for you.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I definitely noticed a huge explosion in online learning being available during COVID, and it continues to be very, very available, although there's not quite as many free ones as there used to be, but I love that it's making it accessible to more people and sharing, and that the information is the important part.
So that's wonderful to see, is how easy it is to learn now, to acquire sources of information.
Yeah. Do you have any funny stories or anecdotes about a crisis-tunity that may have happened in dog training or as a part of the association?
I don't know if it was a crisis-tunity as much as just a funny crisis. This one I don't think was association related. It was Ian Dunbar again. He was putting on a conference or a workshop. It might have been at the Credit Valley Dog Show, actually, which at the time was held in what was then called Skydome. And it was in a conference room off the side of Skydome. It wasn't in the park part of it, although there was the dog show was in the park part of it. And because I still worked for Judy Emmert, our team, the Dealing with Dogs team, was responsible for the management of Ian and moving him from place to place and having his book table and all that. So he had this workshop going on in a conference room at the Skydome, and there was a phone that kept ringing, and it was really loud. It must have been on a speaker so that they could hear it anywhere in the conference room when they needed to, and it was interrupting the workshop. So he asked me to go find the source and pick up the phone and say, stop calling. Because like when it would stop after 10 rings, it would pause and then start again and on and on. So I finally found it. There was an office right upstairs of the conference room. And I crept up these stairs and I could see the phone and I could see it was a darkened office. Nobody was there. So I thought, okay, I'll just go pick up the phone. And as I crossed the threshold at the top of the stairs, there must have been infrared security. And it set off an alarm that was a lot worse than the phone. Through the whole of Skydome, this alarm was like one of those whoop, whoop kind of alarms. So it didn't just shut down the workshop, but everything else that was going on had to come to a stop at the whole Skydome was occupied by the Credit Valley show until they could get it sorted out and shut it off, by which time Ian's time had run out. And I most recently heard him repeat that story 2 years ago in an e-conference that he was holding. So I'm assuming he's been telling it for these 25 years.
Bad. It's always the thing you least expect, right? A phone ringing in an unused office, and that just set everything in motion. Wow.
But one of my favorite stories to come out of our conferences was a very personal experience, and it was at a conference we ran where Torrid Rugas was a speaker. This is another thing I'm very proud of. I meant to mention was we put on great conferences, and we did it as a team, but one of the years I was the leader of that team, and I was really proud of that conference we put on. I got Roger Mugford to come, and Gene Donaldson spoke. I had the names laid out here and they're gone. But anyway, conference was another thing I thought was really pride-worthy that our association accomplished. But anyway, at one of those conferences, I had just heard Torrid Rugas speak, I think in the morning, about calming signals, which is what she always speaks about. And watched some video that she gave us of the different calming signals and so on. And I was the chairperson at the conference. I had to introduce speakers and thank them when they were done and take care of the transition talk. So now it's dark in the theater and there's some people with dogs at their feet. And I've got to creep up to the side of the stage because the current speaker is coming to a finish, and I got to be able to walk on, thank them, and introduce the next speaker. And I'm going up through this darkened theater, and I trip on, I'm going to say it was a Malinois or a Tervuren, can't remember now, but a big short trigger kind of a dog. And he went off like a cannon when I tripped on him in the dark. And fortunately, his handler was a pro and already had the leash ready to restrain him, and everything was fine. But I get up to the side of the stage, and I'm waiting in the wings in the dark, and I look down into the audience, and there is this fella now on his feet, and he is laser focused on me, watching me in the wings, like no wavering. And I thought back to the presentation I'd watched this morning, and I just looked a little down and to my left and licked my upper lip like I'd seen them do in the video. And son of a gun, didn't this dog lick his lip and lie down and take his eyes off it?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. So applicable, and just that you were able to use it so quickly and in that situation.
One of the most exciting moments of learning I've had in 30 years of dog training. Maybe the most exciting.
That's incredible. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Andrew. Well, I do have one other thing to share with you today, and that is my congratulations, because you are the newest lifetime member of the CAPDT. Congratulations, Andrew. Thank you so much for being a part of it from the very, very beginning.
Hi. This is my wife, Catherine.
Hi, Catherine. I think Catherine has a surprise for you.
You do this? Oh my God.
Congratulations. Oh,
I'm very moved.
oh, I'm so glad. Oh, we really wanted this we wanted you to have this reaction. So I'm very glad that you are happy with your plaque and your new lifetime membership.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored by that.
It's our pleasure. Thank you so much for contributing to the Canadian Association of Professional Dog Trainers for 30 years and hopefully another 30 yet to come.
Oh gosh. Here's hoping.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you. It has been a pleasure to have you with the association, and we are happy to have you for as long as you'd like to continue with the association.
Thank you. Thank you, board. Thanks, everybody.
Happy training. Thanks a lot. Okay. Bye-bye.